next we're going to talk about your e-collar. I'm a dealer for e-collar technologies, and so whenever you purchase a package through Legend Retrievers, you get a discounted price on an e-collar. So depending on which unit you purchased, most of them are going to be yellow. The unit that I use is camo. This is an older unit, so some of the features might be just a little bit different on my unit than yours, but they should be pretty close. And feel free to send me a text or give me a phone call if you need help figuring your collar out. So a couple of the basic functions. My e-collar has a belt clip on it. Your e-collar is going to come with a lanyard that you can put around your neck. I'm not a big fan of the lanyard. I don't like the way it bounces around. I don't like the way that it hits me in the face, but I am a big fan of the belt clip. So if you purchase a belt clip, it's going to come with a screw and this little plastic piece back here. You screw this onto the back of your e-collar and then it just pops right in there. Press this button and it pops right out. So whenever we're taking a look at our e-collar back here, you can see this is my charging port right here. I also have a charging port right here on my e-collar. Both of these pieces, your transmitter and your receiver, are completely waterproof, but they're only waterproof if your ports are closed. So make sure whenever you take your collar off the charger, you squeeze both of those ports shut completely. So when I'm looking here at my receiver, you can see the number right here. I'm going to cover mine up. This number that my finger is over top of is your serial number. So if you look at the bottom of your box, you're going to have a little postcard in there that you're going to write your serial number and your name and information down and send it back to the manufacturer. I highly encourage you to do this. Follow the process. e-collar Technologies has phenomenal customer support and service. So in the past, whenever one of my units has had a problem, they'll ship me a replacement unit with a note in the box to slap this new label on, and then it immediately goes back. They prepay for the return shipping. But the only way that you're going to get that level of customer service is if you register your unit with them. So make sure that you check for that number right there, fill out your card, and send it back to the manufacturer. On my collar, you can see these two prongs right here. These prongs are really important because this is what actually makes contact with the dog's neck and ensures that you're getting a proper correction. Your unit is going to come with the short prongs, so they're only going to be about this tall. But in the box is going to be a nice little tool. You slip it over top of this. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. You unscrew the short prongs. Long prongs are in the box. Put the long prongs on, turn them all the way, and there you go. All of our Labradors are going to use long prongs. Our short-coated breeds, like a German short-haired pointer, for example, you can go ahead and keep the short prongs on. But for the Labradors, you're definitely going to want your long prongs. This unit that I have has an on and off switch right here. You can see that the green light turns my unit on and the red light turns my unit off. The newer units have a little red dot right here, and then they're going to have a little red dot somewhere on your collar, and this is a magnet. So you'll touch the two red dots together, you'll get that same green light to turn the unit on. Touch the two red dots together and you'll get that same red light to turn the unit off. So I'm going to go ahead and turn mine back on. Back here on the back, we have our on and off switch. So if I press and hold my on and off switch for about 3 seconds, you're going to see that my unit is on. This is also my light switch, so if I press this for just 1 second, I'm turning on my occasional white flashing light. If I hit again for just a second, I'm turning on my solid white light. Obviously, this is really usable, especially for a black dog at night. If you go camping, if you're at a friend's house, if you don't have a fence, and you want to kick the dog out at night, this is a great way to be able to see exactly where they are and not have to be right next to them every second. Also, back here, you can see this little button right here. It's got an M and a C on it. This is my toggle between momentary and continuous. So when I spin the unit around, I don't know if you can see the front of it, but I have a little C right there in my window, a little C. This means that I'm on continuous pressure. So the difference between M and C is that when you're set on the M mode, you can only give a moment of pressure. So it just looks like that. 1 moment of pressure, that's it. No matter how long you press the button, only 1 moment of pressure. Well, that's not really helpful for our dogs. C, continuous pressure, I can press and hold pressure on the dog for up to 12 seconds before the collar is going to automatically shut itself off to make sure that we don't have any problem. The ideal time to correct an unwanted behavior in a dog is between 0 and 1.5 seconds. That's really important, okay? Let's repeat that again. The ideal time to correct an unwanted behavior is between 0 and 1.5 seconds. So if I walk in the house and I find a tinkle spot on the floor and my dog has walked away from that tinkle spot more than 1.5 seconds ago, there's no repercussions. All I can do is clean it up and put my dog outside, but I'm not going to punish my dog because my dog's not going to understand what it's getting in trouble for. A correction that's provided exactly at the time of the unwanted behavior is far more effective than a correction that's provided at the 1.5 second after the behavior mark. Okay, let me give you that again. A correction at the time of the behavior is far more effective than a correction that happens even a second after. So let's use counter surfing for an example. So if my dog likes to get up on the counter, chew paws, chow down on some food, if I come into the kitchen and catch my dog doing this and I go, no, from across the room, my dog jumps back, he gets down on the floor and he slinks around a little bit and he thinks, whew, that was close, I almost got caught. He's not concerned about what he did, he's only concerned about that I saw him because the correction came from across the room and the timing was not correct. Whereas, if my dog is wearing an e-collar in that exact same situation, paws up on the counter, getting a mouthful of food, and a hard correction comes from the e-collar, dogs learn in pictures. That's the most important thing you'll take from training. Dogs learn in pictures. So if I build the picture, paws on the kitchen counter, facing the food, pressure from the e-collar, whew, that's clear. I got it. That's a bad picture. I don't want to do that again. So if I can get the correction in at the moment that the dog produces the behavior and build that picture, I'm going to have a much better chance that my dog is going to understand what he got corrected for and not come back and put his paws on the counter again. Knowing that the ideal time to correct an unwanted behavior is between 0 and 1.5 seconds, that makes the e-collar really one of our best and most usable tools, because even if I'm on the other side of the house, on the other side of the kitchen, on the other side of the yard, or on the other side of the park, if my dog is doing something that he's not supposed to do, I now have an immediate method of communication with him. So for this reason, we are going to toggle all of your units over to C, the continuous. And the reason for this is, if my dog is doing something that he's not supposed to do and I decide to give him a correction, I don't want to miss the opportunity to give that correction because I'm trying to decide if I should hit my momentary or my continuous button. So for that reason, we're going to set all of the units up on continuous. When I'm on continuous, I can either choose to hit the button for 1 second and make a quick correction. We call this a nick sometimes. Or I can also press and hold pressure to give a long-term and continuous correction. So when we have our toggle, our collar toggled over to the C, the continuous mode, that makes this button right here, which is my pointer finger, my pressure button. So if we zoom in, you can see that this collar has 100 different settings. So I can go all the way down to 0, and I can use this spinning button on the top to go all the way to 100. So most of the dogs here at Legend work on about a 10 to a 15. That's going to be their typical working zone. It's very normal that when we're working at home, let's say we're doing place in the house, my dog might work on an 8 or even a 9 because we're low key, we're napping, we feel comfortable there, we don't need a lot of pressure. When we get into the neighborhood park and there are other dogs, I might need to bump my dog up to about a 16 or even a 17 because the stimuli level around my dog has changed. Therefore, the level of stimuli that my dog needs to interrupt that has changed as well. There might also be a case that if I took my dog hunting or I took my dog to a baseball stadium and my dog really loves balls and he's watching the ball go back and forth or watching a soccer ball, I might even need to bump my pressure up to a 22 or a 25. So it's really normal to see that as the stimuli around my dog adjusts, so should the stimuli on my collar. Don't be concerned if you notice that you're taking your levels up and down. So this button right here is going to be my pressure button. This is my toggle on the top. Remember to change speed, to change level of intensity. So right now I'm at a 10. I'm going to press and hold this button on the top. You see that my screen just flashed. I'm now locked in at a 10. So even when I turn this toggle, I cannot remove e-collar from a level 10. This is probably more relevant whenever you're using your lanyard. In my experience, when I'm using the belt clip, even when I brush up against it, I rarely change the setting on the e-collar. So personally, I tend to not lock it very frequently just because I don't find it to be a function that I need very often. So when I'm ready to unlock it, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to press and hold and release the pressure. So you see, I was at a level 10 when I locked it in, and then when I let go, do you see I'm now at a level 0? So it's really common, these buttons are pretty sensitive, so it's very common that whenever I unlock my pressure setting, that it changes the setting. So I want to come back in here and make sure that I come back up to a 10, so that I'm giving my dog the appropriate level of pressure. So when this is set up in continuous mode, this is my pressure setting. That makes this nice little red button right here, which would be my middle finger, my boost. So I'm set up at 10. Whenever I press this button, I'm automatically going to go 5 points higher. And this boost is relevant in the situation where I had this locked and I needed to apply a little bit of extra pressure momentarily, and I didn't want to go through the time to unlock my button. So we talked about a second ago that it's normal for, in certain situations, the level of pressure to change. If I get into a situation where I say here, nothing happens, I say here again, still nothing happens, I press and hold pressure to level 10, my dog is still chasing that bunny and running away from me. Now I'm going to raise pressure and continue raising pressure and saying here. As soon as my dog turns around and commits to coming back, the pressure releases. Okay? So once again, it wouldn't be super uncommon for you to occasionally have to raise the level of pressure as you're pressing the button to match the level of stimuli that you're trying to break your dog from the behavior. Hope that makes sense. Over here, on this side of the button, we have a T. This is actually a vibration. I don't know why it doesn't have a V right there, but it creates a vibration on the collar itself. I do not teach your dog to do anything with this vibration. Most of the time, whenever we vibrate a dog, it really freaks them out. They don't like it. So I don't mess with it a whole lot. Some of my clients in the past have taught their dog that they will warn them before they shock them by vibrating them first. Don't do that. That breaks down your training. That is the equivalent of saying to your child, stop that or I'm going to put you in timeout. Stop that or I'm going to put you in timeout. 1, 2, 2.5. Your kid knows you're not going to do anything because you've just given them this nice big lead up to the fact that you are not willing to apply any sort of pressure or any sort of punishment. That's the same thing that you're telling your dog if you use the vibrate setting on the e-collar. Eventually the dog will become desensitized to the fact that you're probably going to vibrate him 3 times before you actually shock him, so he's going to wait for the 3rd vibration before he decides to come back. Don't do this. Don't undo your training. Your dog knows exactly what this means. I'm not sending them home if they don't understand it. So don't break down the training by using that vibrate button to project your intentions. Ask them to do something. If they don't respond, you ask them again and you pair it with pressure until they produce the desired behavior. When I'm putting the e-collar on my dog, there's a couple of things to consider. Number 1, sit. I have this nice light right here. This is my receiver. So I always want the receiver facing my dog's chin. Okay? I don't want the receiver facing down because then my signal has to come and kind of do some funny stuff to get there. So I want this facing up. This also gives me the ability to see the light up so I know when my dog is receiving pressure and that my collar is working properly. And it also gives the light feature its availability to do its job. So when I look at my dog's neck, her neck is skinnier at the top and fatter at the bottom. So you see where her flat collar is sitting. If she leans over to take a sniff, all of a sudden this flat collar becomes a lot looser. So if I start calling my dog's not coming, I shock my dog, it's not working, I raise the level of pressure until I get to a 40, and all of a sudden my dog stands up, those prongs make connection, and she's getting fried at a 40. That's not fair to my dog. So in order to make sure that my dog is always receiving the proper correction, I'm gonna put my e-collar on high and tight, just behind the dog's skull. Sit. Sit. Good girl. Okay, right at the back of the dog's head. So at the location that this buckle sits behind her neck, it automatically puts the box itself here off to the right on her neck. If I feel my own neck, I have my trachea here in the middle and I have muscle off to the side. The collar is designed to interact with muscle, so it does much better and is a lot more comfortable for my dog when it sits off to the right or to the left side. But if my dog wears her e-collar every day from sunup till sundown, as is prescribed, eventually she's going to get collar sores from this. So one of the things that I'm going to do to make sure that the collar sits in a different spot every day, I'm going to lift her head up and I'm going to give it just a little wiggle, and look at that. All of a sudden it's on the other side. And then tomorrow I might wiggle it over here so she can wear it this direction, and then the next day I might wiggle it over here so she can wear it this direction. And that makes sure that she never builds up sores or has any spots on her neck that become overly sensitive or tender. You'll also notice that my e-collar comes with this really big strap. Most people want to cut this strap off, and I encourage you not to. I like to loop my strap back through a couple of times and turn this into a cute little dog bow tie. Check that out. Pretty cute, right? Heel. Sit. No. Sit. Good. Sit. Good. The relevance of this, the reason that I don't cut it off, is let's say that Ruby and I head to a backyard barbecue and Ruby's running around chasing tennis balls, throwing them at people. She's losing her mind. And I say, come here, Ruby. She's not coming. I hit her with the e-collar. Nothing happens. You know what? I haven't charged it in 3 weeks. I haven't had to use it. What am I going to do now? I didn't bring a leash with me. Guess what? I have this nice folding tab that I can unhook, and all of a sudden I have a leash. That's the reason that I like to keep it long, is you never know when you might need it. So we can just, again, fold it back up like Ruby's little bow tie, and we'll pull it out if at any point we need it. Sometimes my dog's going to be wearing both the prong collar and the e-collar at the same time, particularly if we decide to go for an evening walk, and the beginning of the walk might be on leash and the remainder of the walk might be off leash. So I expect to use both of my tools simultaneously on this walk. I'm going to apply my e-collar first, and then I'm going to come in after that, and I'm going to place my prong collar just below my e-collar. Good job, Ruby. Look